$1,000 red light bed. So if you want to get it for free, you would take your shoes off and touch the surface of the earth. People think earthing and grounding is voodoo science. It's not. I actually, you know what? And the next time I come speak at this audience, I'm going to take a volunteer out of the audience. I'm going to put a grounding mat on the stage. And I'm going to do an exercise that I used to do in front of crowds. And I'm going to prick your finger and I'm going to take a drop of your blood and I'm going to put it on a microscope. And on that microscope, what you're going to see is that as your red blood cells are circulating around in your bloodstream, you will see that they become stuck together and clumped up. And the reason for this is because on the surface of your red blood cell, there's a charge. And just like a magnet, when you have two similar charges, these red blood cells can't touch. As soon as they get opposite charges, they attract and they stick together. And everywhere that they touch, you lose surface area. And everywhere you lose surface area, that cell cannot exchange with its outside environment. It can't eliminate waste. It can't repair. It can't detoxify. It can't regenerate. They call it rouleau when it gets really bad. It looks like a stacked roll of quarters. So think about a stacked roll of quarters and the surface area that has in contact with its outside environment. The sides of that cylinder and the top. If you took that roll of quarters and you threw it on the ground and it's scattered, you'd increase the surface area by 80 times. What did you do? You separated them. So what happens when you touch the surface of the earth is what's called a low Gauss current connects with your body. This is a fact, by the way. A low Gauss current connects with your body and it repolarizes the surface of these cells. And so what I'll do is I'll take you from a non-grounded environment and I'll show your blood to the audience. It's called dark field. We'll put it up here on a microscope. I got 3 of them at the house. Yes, I have 3 microscopes at the house. That's where stuff's gone for my wife and I. Yeah. I got a hyperbaric chamber in my bedroom now. I've turned my gym into a hyperbaric chamber. It's getting a little silly. My wife's kind of getting over my biohacking habit. We're having to push kids out of the house, make room for biohacking stuff. But, so, I take this microscope, I put your finger on there, you see how your red blood cells are all stuck together and clumped up. And then what I would do is I would either have you go outside and touch the surface of the earth for about 6 minutes, or I'd lay you on stage on a PMF mat. Same thing. One costs $0, one costs $5,000. And then I would check your blood 15 minutes after you got off that mat, and in real time I would show the audience how all of your red blood cells were just free floating and slithering around, and all that surface area had opened up again. That's the low Gauss magnetism that we get from the earth. It is very real. And then we talk about the light that we get from the sun. We have been taught to fear the sun. But if you were to actually chart the parabolic rise in skin cancer with the parabolic use of sunscreen, you would see that these are actually superimposable, right? 23 brands of sunscreen have been removed from the market since 2018 for directly causing skin cancer. Yeah. And we've been taught to fear the sun. You know what causes skin cancer? Inflammation on the surface of our skin. The sun doesn't actually cause the cancer. The UVA and UVB rays activate inflammation that is trapped in the surface of our skin. And so, skin cancer in the 50s was a fraction of what it is now. And even though we've had this parabolic rise in sunscreen use, we've had this parabolic rise in skin cancer. So if you're actually worried about exposing your skin to the sun, do it during first light. God gives us an hour in the morning as the sun crests the horizon. He gives us 1 hour where there's no UVA and there's no UVB rays. There's only beautiful blue rays from the sun, the kind of rays that create vitamin D3. They pass through your skin. But what happens when light passes through your skin? You see, I think we've forgotten what photovoltaic beings we are. When you lay in a red light bed, $120,000 red light bed, something really fascinating happens. That red light passes through your skin. When it gets inside of your cell, it goes through the wall of your cell and it goes into a little organelle called the mitochondria. How many of you know what a mitochondria is? Not you, smarty pants. She's like, yeah, I know exactly. I know all 4 stages of the Krebs cycle. Nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide. Yeah, aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So it passes through the wall of the mitochondria, and when the light passes through the wall of the mitochondria, it kicks out a gas. Right? It kicks out a gas called nitric oxide, and that gas leaves. And when that gas leaves, oxygen docks. You see, in the mitochondria, there's a little one-armed man, and he can either shake hands with nitric oxide or he can shake hands with oxygen. If he's shaking hands with nitric oxide, he can't hold on to oxygen. The difference between whether he grabs oxygen, it's called cytochrome C oxidase, by the way. You don't need to know that. I just want you to know I'm smart. If he grabs nitric oxide, he can't grab oxygen. But if he does grab oxygen, you get a 16-fold step up in cellular energy. You actually create 36 ATP instead of 2 ATP. That's why I say that the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. Remember I was going to tell you how we get more oxygen? Well, one way is to breathe. The other is to actually expose your skin to sunlight in the morning. Why? Because those same rays in a $120,000 red light bed, God gives them to us every single day for free. He deletes all the UVA and the UVB for those of you that are worried about skin cancer, and he actually allows those rays to hit your skin, and when they do, they will kick out that gas, nitric oxide, and they will force oxygen into the mitochondria. Light is medicine. It's medicine. The earth is medicine. And then the last thing I do is I talk very often about breath work, because I read a statistic. I don't know if it's true. I didn't see the clinical study behind it. And at some point, I'm going to really go down the rabbit hole and look this up. But whether it's true or not, it's very emblematic of what we see in society. And it says that after the age of 30, 90% of human beings will never sprint again. So after our 30th birthday, we won't actually break out into a dead sprint like we did when we were kids, or we were playing high school sports, or maybe you played collegiate sports. Think about the last time you actually broke out into a dead sprint. The reason why that's important is not just for your physical fitness, it's for your respiratory fitness. Because you know what happens when you sprint? You consciously overtake your breathing, and you breathe like this. You use what's called your intercostals, your auxiliary muscles of respiration. The older we get, the less we use these, the weaker they become, the more shallow our breathing, the lower our oxidative state, the more the breathing moves from the lobes of our lungs to the apex of our lungs, and we slowly suffocate to death over a long period of time. Hypoxia is a predictable curve. You are either using oxygen well in your body, or you are using it poorly. The more shallow you breathe, the less oxygen in your blood, the more carbon dioxide in your blood. The less oxygen you have, the more prone you are to all forms of disease and pathology, because the body needs energy to fight. And oxygen is energy because it creates the only molecule that human beings run on, which is called ATP. Adenosine triphosphate. You see, none of us eat to feed ourselves. Whatever you ate for lunch today, not a single thing you put in your mouth can be used in any form of energy in the body. Nothing you ate fed you. The only reason why you ate was to feed your gut bacteria. And your gut bacteria ate to feed you. There's an intermediary between us, what we eat, and what we can absorb and what we can use as nutrients. That is a fact. When you swallow that piece of chicken, that protein did nothing for you until your gut bacteria broke it down into individual amino acids. It left the luminal area of your gut, entered your bloodstream as amino acids, and built all of the structures in your body. Built your bones, it built your skin, your hair, your skin, your nails, and it built your muscles. Yes, sir?
Is CoQ10 very important for ATP?
CoQ10 is very important for ATP, and so is something called ubiquinol. Right? Some people actually have a gene mutation that they have a hard time converting CoQ10 into ubiquinol. The ubiquinol is a great version of CoQ10, way more bioavailable. But yes, it is. It's important for ATP. So my point is, if we want to develop a starting point, like people ask me all the time, Gary, like where do I start on this health journey? Before we even talk about supplements and everything else, and we're going to talk about that, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. Where do I start? I go, you start by getting back to the basics. Right? That's where you start. You start eating whole foods. If you don't understand the label, then don't eat it. If your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize it, don't put it in your mouth. Really easy. You start by eating whole foods. You start by making mobility non-negotiable. The reason why 82% of all autoimmune disease in this country is found in women are because women have a tendency to be more selfless. They actually have a tendency to put other people's needs before themselves because they were meant to bear children. It is actually a characteristic, it's a trait of women to put themselves in the back seat, to think that self-care is selfish And what they do is they make these micro decisions over and over and over throughout their lifetime. I'm going to serve my spouse. I'm going to serve my kids. I'm going to get my kids to school. I'm just going to skip my workout this morning. And then eventually what happens is they find themselves so far in the back seat that they actually are succumbed to 82% of all of the autoimmune disease in the country. This is fixable, right? So a couple things. We eat a whole food diet. We start reconnecting with Mother Nature in very simple ways, taking our shoes off, touching the surface of the earth, going out in the morning and getting morning light, horizon gazing, letting natural light get into our eyes. You know what natural light does when it passes through your eyes? Regulates your cortisol receptors, drops your melatonin, resets your circadian rhythm. You see, we've gotten so disconnected from our circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm disorder and sleep disorder is sucking the life out of humanity. We all know that sleep is important, but nobody can really answer the question why. Like, what happens during sleep that's so important? Sleep is our human superpower. Two things happen when you sleep. During deep sleep, one phase of sleep, a very special part of your brain becomes active. It's called the lymphatic system. We have lymph nodes in our body and in our neck. You know, when your lymph nodes swell when you get a sore throat. The lymph system is a static system. The only way that it moves is by contracting your muscles, which is why walking is so healthy, because walking will circulate your lymphatic system and it will remove waste from your body. But in the brain, it's called the lymphatic system. It turns on one time during the day, during deep sleep. And what happens when it switches on? When it switches on, the brain eliminates waste. It repairs, it detoxifies, it regenerates. And by eliminate waste, I don't mean stool and urine, I mean cellular waste from your brain is eliminated during deep sleep. During REM sleep, you take all of the activities, the conscious activities that you had during the day. My stage talk, for example, and if you're inspired by the stage talk and you're thinking, man, I really want to remember that, or I want to write it down, I want to tell it to somebody tomorrow, what will happen is the information that I gave you today, when you go to sleep tonight, it will plug in with your subconscious during REM sleep. Not while you're conscious and awake, during that phase of sleep. So if you're getting too little of that phase of sleep, your short-term memory starts to go, and you start walking around with brain fog, and you go to the doctor and tell him you got brain fog, and the next thing you know, you're on an SSRI, or you're on a sleep tranquilitic. You don't need those things, right? You just need to develop good sleep hygiene. So that's another one of the things I'm going to teach you. I did an incredible sleep challenge. Did anybody participate in my sleep challenge? Oh, it was a really successful challenge. Great. Nobody? All right. Awesome. All right. Thank God I have a lot of other fans outside this room. I'd be broke. Yeah. Was there one?
There's people waiting all outside for the next segment. Personal audience with Gary Brecka, guys.
Yeah.
Personal audience. The cab booth is lined up I didn't mean to interrupt.
Really?
Just
That's
thumbs
amazing.
up. I don't know.
Thank you, man.
All the way back, and then people out here. Just personal audience.
Thank you. Thank you. I know this might be boring, because it's not as exciting maybe as my
No.
Come on, baby. But this is, we're missing the obvious, right? It's just shooting by us, right? And we want to be up here in the exotics, in the leaves.